Aloha and welcome to Action Island. I am Gilles Gallant and I'm joined by Nick Giffen, Derek Carty, and Kyle Murray. And we're here to wrap up Super Wild Card weekend in the NFL. We've got the Houston Texans and Pittsburgh Steelers on tap for Monday Night Football. The Texans are slight road favorites, totals around 38 and a half. And as usual, why we're here, we're going to build a four-leg same-game parlay to sweat for this matchup. So here's how it works. Four of us, we give our two favorite bets for tonight's game. Then we're going to take a vote on those picks to decide which parlay leg is going to stay and which one is going to get kicked off the island by the end of the show. We should have a four-leg same-game parlay for Steelers Texans. And of course, if you want to tail any of the bets that we give out on today's show, we're going to be dropping links in the YouTube chat. That'll help you quickly bet these since the lines could move. Want to make sure you get the best prices and best numbers. Some of these, like yardage props, for example, they kind of range depending on the sports book. So use the sports book, the quick slip link, and you could thank us later. So, all right, Kyle Murray, you are up first. And oh, okay, they're not both props. All right, what are we doing today?
Yeah, getting a little bit out of my comfort zone here, but looking at Steelers under 17 and a half team total for my first play, just really like the Texans in this spot. And I think a lot of that stems from the Houston defense and the struggles I think Pittsburgh is going to have on the offensive side of the ball. Houston, obviously one of the most elite defenses in football. They rank second in both run and pass DVOA per FTN's data. So obviously they've been doing a good job on both fronts on the defensive side of the ball. So that's going to at least eliminate the efficiency on that side. But also I think it's going to impact their game plan going forward. Obviously, Pittsburgh is a team that likes to rely on some explosive plays, but also they do a lot with their running backs in this offense. And if they can't obviously establish the run, I think some struggles will arise throughout the entire of their game plan. So really have some question marks for the Steelers and their pass game and run game in this one. And obviously Texans elite on the defensive side of the football, allowing the second fewest points per game to opposing teams this season, which is 17.4. So I like the under 17 and a half team total in a game where I do think that scoring is going to be at a premium.
Yeah, this sounds like more like your small load bet of the week. If for any of our recurring viewers, you'll probably understand that reference. So Steelers under 17 and a half team total. That is the first pick from Kyle. Where are we going with the second one?
Yeah, I'm taking Jaden Higgins, anytime touchdown score, plus 440 in the market, anywhere from 4 to 1 is where I kind of like this one. But like I said earlier, I do expect scoring to be at a premium, but with this number being north of 4 to 1 or right around there, I think there is some value on the Jaden Higgins anytime touchdown score. Since week 10, Higgins is tied for the lead on this Houston team with 3 receiving touchdowns, also leads the team with 3 end zone targets. Obviously, we saw some explosive ability there in week 18 with the long touchdown. So I think there's a few different ways that Higgins can find the end zone in this one. But also, I think that he's going to be a guy that we're going to look at in the end zone. Obviously, you have Nico Collins, who's going to be a big, prominent target there as well. But I'm expecting more success for Houston's offense rather than the Steelers offense. So looking at a touchdown score on the Houston side was where I wanted to go. Landed on Jaden Higgins with some value at around 4 to 1.
Yeah, he's definitely the wide receiver too in this offense, running way more routes than Xavier Hutchinson or Jalen Noel at this stage. So yeah, it makes sense that why we would get like a plus 440 price on him, especially where the total is only at 38 and a half. So, all right, Nick, Derek, we got to take a vote. Are we going to fade the Steelers, go full under 17 and a half team total, or are we going to get spicy and take Jaden Higgins for an anytime touchdown at plus 440? So let's take a vote. All right, Kyle. I love Jaden Higgins too, but I went with Pittsburgh Steelers team total under. I prefer another Texans pass catcher for today. But okay, is it just me? All right, everybody's on Steelers. Okay, so I don't feel like I'm going against the crowd here. All right, Steelers under 17 and a half team total. That is going to be the first pick of this same game parlay. So also, if you want to tail either of those bets, again, quick slip links have been dropped in the YouTube chat if you want to tail the Steelers pick or Jaden Higgins for an anytime touchdown. Next up is Derek Carty, fresh off of a 2-0 appearance on Action Playbook Live. Where are we going today, Derek?
Yeah, my first bet I'm looking at is Christian Kirk under receiving yards. Now, it is going to depend on what book you're looking at. Under 22 and a half at Bet365, under 21 and a half at BetMGM, 19 and a half at most books. It's totally fine at any of the numbers that's available right now. The Blitz is projecting about 8 yards under the 21 and a half, about a 67% win rate on that, about a 63% win rate on the 19 and a half. Christian Kirk, like you just said, is running behind Jaden Higgins of late. facing a really tough Steelers defense, and the game environment here. They're 3-point favorites, should be a bit of a rushing game script. And, even just behind, not just behind Higgins, like there is Hutchinson in the mix, there is Jalen Noel in the mix, there is Dalton Schultz who's going to command a bunch of targets, and obviously Nico Collins. There's a lot of mouths to feed here in this offense. So I like the under on Kirk.
Yeah, I think like his A dot for Kirk is somewhere around 7 or 8 yards down the field. Like I'm not sure if he's going to get enough targets to even get to this 22-yard receiving yard threshold, right? So, but you like the under across any spot, even if it's at the 19 and a half. But for this purpose, we'll take the under 22 and a half, the best line that's out there. So Christian Kirk under 22 and a half receiving yards. What's the second prop you like?
Second prep I like is an alt line. Woody Marks to go 70 plus rushing yards, plus 200 at Circa is the best odds that I could find, but there's plus 190s, plus 180s out there depending on your book. The blitz is projecting 69 yards for Woody Marks here, so almost right on the number. When you account for distributions, it's about a 44% win rate that it's projecting, so not quite a coin flip, not quite 50-50, but if you're getting anything close to plus 200, you're taking a 44% win rate every single time. Jawar Jordan is out here, which is the main thing that I really like. He was eating into a bunch of Woody Marks' stuff the last couple of weeks, but Nick Chubb has kind of been phased out of this offense, has really not been getting much work. It's possible he takes some of the work that Jordan would have otherwise gotten, but I think it's more likely that that work just goes to Woody Marks here. In what is going to be a fast-paced game, they're 3-point favorites, so potential for a little bit of extra rushing in the second half as they try to salt the game away, and they're facing a tough passing defense. So hopefully they approach this a little bit more on the ground if we're lucky with this one.
Yeah, I think even the Texans are probably sick of watching Nick Chubb run headfirst into the line and seeing no yardage, very much so. I could see them leaning on Woody Marks a little bit more in this game and maybe just using Chubb as more of a change of pace, like just after he ran for like 30 plus yards kind of run here. So, all right, guys, Nick, Kyle, we got to take a vote. Are we going to fade Christian Kirk under 21 and a half or under 22 and a half receiving yards, or are we going to take Woody Marks to have 70 plus rushing yards? So let's take a vote. All right, I got swayed with the you could take it at any number suggestion, so I went with Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk. Oh, Nick took Marks. Nick, what's up with the Woody Marks pick? I want to know a little bit more. Just prefer it a
I
little bit
mean, I'm
more.
a little spooked by the fact that the Steelers allow the third most receiving yards to the slot position, and Christian Kirk is their slot receiver. But also, I love the Marks bet. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, they rank eighth worst in yards before contact allowed. And the thing Houston really struggles with is yards before contact, generating that for the running backs. So we could see at least a quarter, maybe a half yard per carry more just before contact.
Yeah,
I like the Texans. I tracked them earlier in the week at -2.5. So favored for the game script and just a ton of volume. The Steelers just allow, like, I think it's the most or second most plays in the league against them. So just massive volume against this Steelers team.
for sure. Yeah. And the one thing I will say too is if you want to tail either of these bets, quick slip links have been dropped in the YouTube chat so you could tail either the Woody Marks pick or the Christian Kirk pick. But for this parlay, we're going to use the Christian Kirk under 22 and a half receiving yards. All right, Nick, you are up next now. But first, though, if you want access to Action Pro projections, make sure to sign up for an annual subscription to Action Pro. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Kerner, Nick Giffen, all the members of the Action Analytics team, along with those anytime touchdown projections. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today. Use code Island20 at sign up. One more time, that's Island20 at sign up for $20 off. Now, Nick, you probably let the cat out of the bag a little bit based on you saying that you've already tracked a bet in our Action Network app. Is that where we're going with the first pick?
Yeah, I tracked it a week ago at -2.5. It is now -3, but I'm taking the Texans -3. If we just look in, the regular season, one of the big things that we always look at to kind of predict future success is point differential. And so first order point differential, which is just points for and points against, Texans +109 this season, Pittsburgh +10. And if we just limit that to CJ Stroud starts and Aaron Rodgers starts, because they both missed some games here and there, the margin was +6.8 per game for Houston in Stroud starts and just +0.8 per game in Aaron Rodgers' start. That's a 6-point difference right there. We'll talk about schedule adjusting that in a second, but I want to go to second order point differential, which is our expected scores, which is, uses the underlying data, the underlying metrics from the game to say what their scores should have been throughout the year. And we get Houston plus 85.5, Pittsburgh minus 13 on expected point differential. Third order is schedule adjusting those second order ones, and Houston faced the third toughest schedule in the league by DVOA. That would put Houston at an expected 72% win rate versus the average NFL team. Pittsburgh faced a league average schedule, 16th. So that puts them at a 47.5% expected win rate versus an average team. So that means they're basically an average team, right? So we'd expect Houston to win this north of 70% at a neutral site. That's like being 6.5, 7-point favorites on a neutral. Home field adjusts that 2.25 points, which is right around league average, and Pittsburgh has right around a league average home field. That puts us at like 4.25 to 4.75. I'm actually getting 5 by schedule adjusted expected scores. And that's before even matchup adjusting these things. And this is an amazing matchup for CJ Stroud. I'm going to talk about that on my next pick.
Yeah, and I'm surprised this isn't 3.5, just given the public sentiment of how much we all feel pretty good about the Houston Texans in this matchup. I'm just surprised it hasn't moved to 3. Maybe it will move to 3.5 by kickoff. I'm not sure, but Texans minus 3 is the first pick from Nick. Any luck ranking part with this pick at all? No?
I mean, the game's a luck under, but I actually like the over because I think Houston's going to score like 35 points.
All right. All right. So with that in mind,
that's why I was
second pick
laughing
you
for
like?
Kyle's thing when he was saying he thought it was going to be low scoring, because I was like, I like 35, 38 points for the Texans. I have them highest scoring team of wild card weekend, and 34 is currently the highest. So give me 35 or more for the Texans.
Well, seeing the second prop here that you have, this may lead to a lot of Texans points. What do we have?
Yeah, I'm going to take CJ Stroud over 229.5 passing yards, and I don't really think this is anti-correlated with the Woody Marks pick that Carty gave out, because just a ton of volume here. And I think Stroud gets there in a winning script by efficiency, or in a losing script by volume. But this is an incredible matchup for CJ Stroud when we look at 3 specific areas. Pressure. Pittsburgh, they're just 20th in pressure rate over expectation. Stroud has struggled with pressure this year, 13th worst adjusted net yards per attempt out of 40 when pressured, but 11th best with a clean pocket. So I think he's going to do really well in that category. If we look at man versus zone coverage, Pittsburgh plays a top 7 rate of man. CJ Stroud has just absolutely destroyed it versus man coverage this year. 6-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio versus man, and 6-to-7 versus zone. And then also single high versus 2 high safety, which, man very often is cover 1, which is single high, but then you add in cover 3. And again, great splits versus single high coverage, 8 touchdowns to 3 interceptions versus single high coverage, 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions versus 2 high. And Pittsburgh plays top 7 rate of single high coverage as well, because they play over 30% cover 3. So if we look at the coverages Pittsburgh plays and we compare them to all the other coverages all the other teams play, and also add in pressure rate, I can do something called similarity scores and find the most similar defenses to Pittsburgh. And the 4 most similar ones are Detroit, Indianapolis, Baltimore, and the New York Giants. Well, he didn't play Detroit or the Giants this year, but he did play Indy twice and Baltimore once. He played a half game in that final game of the regular season against Indy. So in 1.5 games against Indy, he threw for 445 yards. That's equal to 296.7 yards per game. And he passed for 244 yards versus Baltimore in a 44-10 blowout where he didn't need any volume. He just got it through efficiency. So in those 2.5 games, that's 275.6 yards per game versus the most similar defenses to Pittsburgh. They won big versus Baltimore. They were leading versus Indy in the half game he played, and they lost a close one to Indy in their first meeting, but that was with Daniel Jones back in. And these are the teams, Indy, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, that allow the second, third, and fourth most passing yards in the league. So this is the most similar spot to those games. And CJ Stroud was throwing for 275 per game in mostly winning scripts.
Bravo, man. Great write-ups for both of those. Thank you very much, Nick. All right, Stroud, over 229.5 passing yards against the Steelers secondary, or we just take Texans -3 to cover on the road. So, all right, Kyle, Derek, we got to take a vote. Are we going to vote for the Texans to cover as 3-point favorites, or are we going to take CJ Stroud to bomb it down the field, 229.5 passing yards? So let's take a vote. All right, I voted for Stroud in this spot. It's not to say that I don't believe in the Texans to cover, but did I get outvoted? Texans. Damn it, I did get outvoted. Okay, all right. So, which I'm okay with. I think the Texans are going to cover the spread, but uh, that Stroud explanation to me is calling my name, especially because I really like the idea of the Texans passing offense thriving in this spot. But again, if they do, that's probably because they're covering the 3 points anyway. So Texans -3. That's going to go with the Christian Kirk under on receiving yards, along with the what did Kyle have? Oh yeah, Steelers under 17.5 team total. All right, so I have got 2 touchdown props to round out this parlay. The first one, I gave it out as the best bet on the Touchdown Show podcast. I gave it out as my best bet on Action Playbook Live. I'm going to do it again today, and that's Nico Collins for an anytime touchdown. He's around plus 155. Nick broke this down already. Steelers top 7 in both man coverage and single high safety. Just like CJ Stroud succeeds against those defenses, Nico Collins absolutely destroys those defenses, and he leads the targets in Texans rather in targets per route run and yards per route run against those defenses. And another reason why I like Nico here is just the historical output of seeing him thrive in the postseason. So 4 career playoff games, he's seen at least 7 or more targets. He's scored in 2 of them. The Steelers as well, from a defensive DVOA standpoint, have struggled against the deep ball compared to the short pass. So I think that could open up a lot more deeper targets for Nico Collins. So give me that side, that touchdown on the Texans side. On the Steelers side, though, Pat Fryermuth right now is to me showing the most value. He's around 4-1. I think he's essentially going to be like the wide receiver 2 in this matchup, given what we're seeing from MVS and Adam Thielen. I think those guys are going to take a little bit of a step back from a snaps and route participation standpoint because DK Metcalf is back, and Muth 70% route participation over the last few games. End zone target in week 18. He's ran triple the routes of tight end 2 John O. Smith, especially since Darnell Washington got hurt. And the Texans pass defense, pretty strong overall, but if there is a weakness, it's been to tight ends. They've allowed 8 touchdowns to tight ends this year, 7 of those coming just over the second half of the season since week 8. In comparison, they've only allowed 10 touchdowns total for the season to wide receivers. And shameless plug, it's the largest Action Pro edge for Steelers touchdown scorers tonight. So I'm going to take him, Pat Fryermuth, in this spot right now. So guys, it's up to you. How are we going to round out this parlay? Are we going to take Nico Collins for an anytime touchdown, or are we going to get spicy and take Pat Fryermuth for an anytime touchdown? So let's take a vote. All right, great job to our graphics guys spelling Pat Fryermuth. And did we vote for Pat Fryermuth or Nico Collins? Nico. All right, Nico Collins. The people have spoken. Nico Collins, anytime touchdown is how we're rounding out this parlay. So let's recap. All right, so we've taken the Steelers team total under 17.5. We're going to take Christian Kirk under 19.5 because we'll get the better parlay odds overall. But if you wanted to take it under 22.5 or 21.5, you can do that. Texans -3 is the third leg. That's from Nick Giffen. And then we're going to round that out with Nico Collins for an anytime touchdown. Seeing this parlay, guys, at plus 850 at DraftKings right now. Nick, we talk a lot about correlation and just are we getting enough decent value on odds at this spot? At plus 850, how are we feeling about this one?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, every single leg correlates. The Christian Kirk under, if the Texans are covering, won't need to throw as much. If the Texans are covering, the Steelers may not be scoring points. And of course, we're getting that Nico Collins touchdown to help the Texans cover. I still think you can add the Stratton leg in there. Maybe I could have gotten Carty or Kyle to vote for it if I'd said Euclidean distance on the sim scores.
Yes.
Didn't say it. So, I was probably my fault there not to get the Stroud leg in there. But I like all 4 legs here. They all correlate really well.
I was really hoping you was going to say it because that's what I was going to say is you had me at Euclidean distance, like as soon as you said that. So, Kyle, before we get out of here, I know you had Jaden Higgins for a touchdown. Was there any conflict in voting for Nico over Muth, or did you feel like Nico was still the better value in this spot?
No, between the two, I still did like Nico quite a bit. I think Nico's a great in a great spot here as well. I will say I do sort of normally have no regrets with my votes here, but with the way the parlay shaped out, I wouldn't have minded taking Stroud instead of the Texans spread. I obviously love the Texans tonight. They've been one of my favorite picks of the week. But I do think from a parlay perspective, either adding Stroud or maybe taking him over the Texans -3 might add a little bit more juice to the parlay. But also don't mind making it a 5-leg parlay here and adding a little bit more of an odds booster here.
All right. And Derek, anything else to add before we get out of here, man?
No, that covers it. I'm feeling pretty good about it tonight.
All right. Well, that is all for us. Thank you for watching Action Island for Monday Night Football on Super Wildcard Weekend. Also, a reminder, join the Action Network Discord. Nick, you're going to go live tonight at the 2-minute warning for Bet What Happens Live with Grant Neefer. And we're going to be back on the island at some point for the divisional round. So you could set some notifications on the Action Network YouTube channel for when we plan to go live. And on behalf of Nick Giffen, Kyle Murray, Derek Carty, I'm Gilles Gallant. Thank you for watching Action Island. Aloha and bon chance.